Greetings and salutations. Greetings and salutations. Hi, it's Robert Phoenix. It's the Astro Weather. It's Tuesday. What's happening, everybody? Just getting my cobwebs out of my brain. Here's to Warlanda and all the other coffee drinkers in the house. Good stuff. You know what I've done? I've kind of gotten lazy with coffee a little bit. I inherited my mother's Keurig coffee maker, and I have a reusable metal pod that I stick in that Keurig, and it is so convenient, I have to say, and it makes a prettier cup of coffee. There is no substitute in my mind for a French press, but in a pinch, when I'm a little stretched for time, the Keurig with the reusable metal cup is a good thing. All right. Who do we have in here today? There he is, DJ MC, batting lead off Dova Haza. Hello, Dova Haza. Amber Lynn Anderson checking in from Mars. What's up, Amber Lynn? How's the weather up there? I've heard springtime in Mars is quite the thing. Must be experienced one of these days on the bucket list. Catherine Kramer, K2, checking in from Florida. Jackie Delario, it's a beautiful morning. In South Jersey, yes, it is. Let's see. There's my man Ryan. Not too far. I think Ryan's more North Jersey / Pennsylvania / Philadelphia. What's going on, my man? Greetings. Dory McLean, channeling the universe from New Mexico. Mary Lee. Greetings. Greetings, Mary Lee. Dave Sullivan's here. What's up, Dave? There is the aforementioned Warlanda, Southwest Virginia. I tried to come up with a description for Warlanda's podcast. And I said it felt like an Appalachian goth version of Prairie Home Companion at around 25 minutes. I think that's a good description. Warlanda, let me know if I'm over the target there. Nora Rashid. Built for speed, Nora Rashid. Green-eyed crow. Speaking of green eyes, there she is, the lovely and talented one. Kelly B checking in from, again, Florida. A lot of Florida buzz. Speaking of Florida buzz, there's my man Steve Thor by the door, making it in. Right before the home bell rang at 8 a.m. Rainbows and butterflies. And more Florida. Mark, yes. Mark, we got to catch up, man. We're going to try and do it today. I know we get on the phone, we'll talk for a while. The talented Mark S. Zoracle Dax is here. Laura E. PMSO. What's happening, Janine? Lynette Jardine, Mad Maxine, TDF, SP Dimples, Europa in the house. Brandy Herrera, 50 degrees in Apple Valley, California. Well, that sounds reasonable. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Did I say hi to TDF? Hi, TDF. Double hi. Moira. Check. We got Moira in the Big Apple and Brandy in Apple Valley. There's a message in there. It's up to you to decode it. Let's see. Who else do we have here? Meowgical Catacorn up in the DFW. Greetings, Terry Catterley in Crossville, Tennessee. Katie Barden, what up back to you? Fam says, Lewis Walden, look at that. Our man from Southwest Florida in the house. Man, Florida, the citrus state is represented here. Janine says, we were in some very interesting times. That's an understatement. That is a fucking understatement. Veronica's barn. Allie, Vivi, Carol, Georgia, Harriet Bowie. Hey, got a good group here. There's my man, David Hawk. Good to see you, David. Look at that. We got some good cross section going on here. Love it. Love the cross pollination. Garrison Keeler was great. I have no problem with the comparison. There you go. Garrison Keeler was interesting, except for his politics. Love Light Energetics. Waiting for hubby to get through her surgery. All right. We wish hubby nothing but Godspeed and great expertise with this surgery. Sharon Lewis checking in from Vero Beach. Uh-oh, look at this. We got 2 Crossville Tennesseans. Matt Burns comes back with, holy crap, I live in Crossville, Tennessee. I'm sensing a meetup in the future. Yes, we all hope that Love and Light Energetics husband gets through the surgery like a champ. Absolute champ. All right. I think we've got some good greeting vibes in the wind, as it were. All right, let's get into it. Just a little show business here, and look at this. Kelly B says, I'm very close to Crossville. What is okay? We got a lot of Crossville action. There's got to be a message in there. Are we at a crossroads? Very interesting. I love that shit. Vivi says, love it there. Beautiful place. Maybe we should just all go to Crossville. Let's just all meet in Crossville. Just in case, Matt Burns is near Grassy Cove on the plateau. Look at that. Vivi's in the southwest corner of North Carolina. Some cool energy in Crossfields. Yes, there is a message being sent. A message from the universe. Decode Crossville. All right, show business. So tonight, I just need to find out. Let's see, what time should I do? Let me look at my calendar. Why don't we shoot for 6 p.m. tonight? 6 p.m. tonight, the debut of Astro Dads. Since we're on the new moon, me and my guy Ferris Gallion, the first edition of Astro Dads. In future Astro Dads, we'll be debuting it on Saturday because it's Saturn Day and Saturn is considered the father. So it'll be Saturday morning, not too early. I'm thinking around 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. So for you folks in the Pacific time zone, it's 9 a.m. You'll be up. In the Eastern time zone, it'll be midday. You'll be swinging into action. So that's going to be once a month with Astro Dads. And this month we're looking at the sign of Taurus, and I'm totally into it. I think we're going to have a very good series of shows. The first one I thought went really, really well. What else do we have here? Please hit like, smash the thumb, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you feel so inclined, you can buy me a cup of coffee since this channel has been demonetized since 2011. Going on my 13th year of demonetization. And it feels good. It feels real good. And thank you for everybody who has contributed to the coffee coffers, and I really appreciate it. It's again one of the ways that I do monetize this channel. And of course, we'll talk about True Hemp Science later. He helps buy this guy some cat food. Yes, you keep him in cat food. Jasper. As the older Jasper gets, the needier gets. James Turgart from Eastern Germany. Let's throw that up there. East Germany in the house. East Germany in the house. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. I had really great food one night in East Germany. It was Thai food. It was fucking fantastic. All right. We shall tarry no more. Let's talk about the weather. Just another little housekeeping thing. I was on with Emily last night, Emily Moyer, the great Emily Moyer, and we were doing Strange Mosaic. It's 2 hours, and it was great broadcasting with Emily again. We're talking about maybe, having more regular shows again. And the thing I love about Emily is that she always brings in these kind of angular perspectives, and she really gets me to think about things and reassemble the matter in my brain so that I can kind of align other things. It's really it's really cool. It's like it's kind of like jazz, and all of a sudden you're playing something. We're starting off with the topic, and we're playing the tune, and then she'll off and she'll do like a weird solo, right? Which is like maybe in a different key and whatever, and kind of cuts against the grain, but kind of fits. And then it's like I riff off of that. So it was really cool. And thanks for everybody last night who turned out and was part of the crew. She had a very active chat. Apparently, some troll. I think Jay kept having to bop the troll last night. All right. Let's get into it. Let me do a little screen share here. Okay, here we go. Oh, by the way, if you haven't seen Sunday Night Show, check it out. There's a lot of info on Sunday Night Show. I got a text from somebody talking about how the Saturn information was quite helpful. So for all you people that are the parents of somebody of around the age of 20, 21, you may want to go back and check that out because I get into that age specific for Saturn. Okay, here we go. There's that moon, 10 degrees. If you want, this is the day, by the way, if you want to get a haircut, I should look into this. If you want to get a haircut, today's the day. Today and maybe part of tomorrow, just in case you need an appointment. Today is the day to cut your hair. So Jeff Rosen, if you're listening, you've been waiting for this day. You always want to get your hair cut on a new moon because it grows back nicely. Just letting you know. I think we're at the outlier for planting as well. I think after this, it just gets too hot to plant. So if you have anything you want to get in the ground, this new moon in Taurus, of course, is ideal. And it's a good day to, I think, debut Astro Dads because it's the sun and the moon together. And there's that symbiosis between the masculine and the feminine, which I think me and Ferris are trying to do. We're looking at parenting from a masculine perspective. But, I would say, by and large, that astrology is more of a feminine art. Maybe it's just practiced by women more than men. And the guys that practice tend to be pretty feminine, if I may be so bold. But I think it's a good symbiosis between the masculine and the feminine. So today, I mean, we're still a little balsamic here, but by tonight, we're clearly in the new moon zone. And it's a great time to set things in motion. So I'll give you an example. Like, so the house that I live in, I'm broadcasting from this studio space, and when we purchased the home, we did the report, and they, for whatever reason, they left out one of these. They're like, I don't know, piers. It's like a post, but it's in the ground and it props up the floor. So there's one corner that was not finished. So yesterday I made the call to the company that can do that, come out and put that one post in. And I thought, okay, this is a good time because we're dealing with the earth, we're dealing with foundation. And so I made the call, and by the time they come out, the moon will be in Cancer. So I think it'll be good. It's a good time. So this is just a good cycle to do this stuff. I would say also really look at your money during this time. I keep hearing whispers of the black swan event in the wind. Look, I don't profess to know how to navigate a black swan event. I don't think any of us really do because we've never really been through a black swan event. Now, maybe some folks who are in middle Europe might know because they've gone through it. Their countries were taken over, their possessions were seized. Their home was no longer their home; it belonged to the state. If they wanted them to go, they could make them go. That's a black swan event. So there are people that have experienced it. We've had economic collapse in South America numerous times with various countries, but I'd say the closest to a black swan event that we had here was the mortgage crisis in 2008, 2009. Now, I have been reading that there is a lot of financial triage going into the mortgage section because there are people that are way behind on their mortgages and they cannot afford, at least now. I I don't think they're going to have I don't think they're going to have a black swan event before the election unless they want to just completely scuttle the election. And astrologically, I just don't see that. I don't see it. Um, but after the election, all the you know everything is on the table. But pay attention because we're in that zone, right? We're talking about resources. So I think the bottom line for any catastrophe, and a black swan event would be a catastrophe, is you have to have ample resources to get you through the period that is transitionary. Like I don't think unless you have one of these deep underground bunkers or you have a chalet in the Rockies or you're deep off grid somewhere in the Ozarks and you got a bunch of people around you, it's going to be really, really hard to ride something out for 2 or 3 years. I'm just being honest. Okay. Most people just aren't prepared for it. And not only they're not prepared for the physical uh, act of staying alive, keeping food in your body, your house heated, the water pumping, all those things. But there's all the other stuff that would go along with a black swan event, which would be, of course, the chaos that would ensue as a result of it. And most people there's no, unless you play video games where you're playing some kind of a zombie apocalypse game, there's really no training for a black swan event. But I've always thought that you need to be able to have a reasonable amount of resources to get through a transitionary time. Minimum 3 months. If you could stay in the game for 6 months, better, because you just want to buy time. That's really the big thing. You want to buy time so that things can get sorted out. And not everything's going to be the same everywhere. That's the other part too. There can be some areas that could be way more hellish than others. So anyway, just again, look where your resources are and what can you do with them. Do you want cash on hand? Do you want to buy metals? Do you want to buy food? In a time of emergency, just remember everything that's built into FEMA allows them in a state of emergency to seize everything, including your food supplies. Not being paranoid, just being straight and upfront. So, with that in mind, you probably want to have some form of backup plan just in case. I'm going on a little off topic here, but one of the things we talked about last night, and it's astrological, and it has to do with the coming election. And we talked about Mike Johnson, who's a really curious character. Really curious character. We talked about a scenario where Mike Johnson becomes president. I'm going to save that for 15 minutes. And for people who were not on the stream with Emily last night, I'm going to recount what that looks like. And the link for 15 minutes is in the show notes. And I've got a lead story where Lindsey Graham was raided by the FBI and his phone was taken. And it's like, that's really unusual. Really, really unusual. So we're going to get into that. And then we'll get into this whole Mike Johnson thing that I talked about last night. The only real malefic that we're dealing with at this point is Venus and the moon. And look, Venus and the moon are right there at 10:10. So we have the Cazimi conjunction. Cazimi conjunction. That sounds like a town somewhere. So theoretically, the idea with the Cazimi or Casmi, however you want to say it, is that the moon would be canceling out Venus and Venus would be canceling out the moon. I don't really roll like that. I think it's a much more complex synergy. And I don't know. I feel like sometimes it's just a lazy way of saying, it's just a lazy way of not trying to understand how two things meld together and create a type of synthesis. Because it takes work to try to understand it. It takes work to articulate it. And not everybody can do that. It's understandable. Sometimes I even have a hard time articulating it, but we'll give it a go here. So we look at the moon. It's in this balsamic position. It's not quite new. It'll be new tonight, but it's not quite new. It's on the porch of new. And there is this kind of letting go that happens always with the balsamic moon. Now, last night, it would have been much more intense because of the square with Pluto. We're talking about an 8-degree orb here. And as the moon moves through the day, it's going to separate more. And at 13, 14 degrees, we're no longer in that Pluto square, right? And tomorrow, Venus will be at 11. So again, the outlier of the square. So the energy and the intensity of that square is dissipating as well as the power of the moon before it becomes recycled. So in a fixed situation, I think that's good. Any kind of crisis you would have passed through yesterday around money, resources, your relationship with money and resources, any fears resultant from that. So the high water mark would have been yesterday. So we have some lingering feelings and vibrations around insecurity today. And again, I think we're probably going to get some news around the housing market, which it's really weird. Last year I did a weather and I said, yeah, we're going to get some news about the housing market and it's going to be around interest rates. And Jerome Powell came out, I think either that day, I think it was that day, and he said that they were going to lower interest rates in 2024. And then they've made an announcement in 2024 that they're not going to lower interest rates. So I was correct. Um, and it wasn't the desired outcome that I was hoping for. So I think we're going to get some news around the housing market today. And I would say the way that they control news cycles, especially when it's not on a Friday, is they'll release the data later in the day. That's usually what happens. So you may get some on the evening news. I don't know anybody that watches evening news anymore, but you may get some on the evening news and you may get a follow up the next day. But I think we're going to get some news around the housing market today, and it's not going to be good. And remember, I read last night where the Fed is pumping a lot of money into basically the emergency system so that all these mortgages are not defaulting simultaneously. I don't think that the Biden administration can risk a black swan event right now. I don't think they can. They're going to try to run this thing back. They think that they have the votes. They think they have the technology. So they don't, he doesn't even have to go out and press the flesh, even though he does. But again, the only malefic today is here, and I do think that the housing market is in trouble. It has been for a while, ever since they started to raise the interest rates. So, what's good about today? Well, we have Saturn at 17 degrees Pisces coming right in at a nice angle and sextiling the sun. So, Taurus, in a lot of ways, all the earth signs are about order. There are different types of order. Taurus is about foundational order. That's why I'm having the guy come out. I called him yesterday. It's the foundation of the house, about foundational order. And I think if we bring the moon into this as it goes into this new phase, um, there's the potential for a renewal of faith in some ways. The one thing that goes along with a practice of faith. I'm just going in that direction for a minute. Is consistency. You have to be consistent. That's the whole Saturnian part of it. Like and I'm not saying you should do this, but you go to church on a regular basis. You go to service at a certain time, right? That's Saturn. That is the faith clock that you punch when you're engaged in that sort of practice. So how do you personalize this? How do you work with establishing your own practice? Well, today's one of those days. Maybe it's as simple as getting up in the morning and going for a walk. It can be that simple. Like, okay, I'm going to get out of my bed. I'm going to go for a walk. When I come back, I'm going to watch the Astro Weather. Put that in your daily ritual space. But that's what I'm talking about, right? Today's one of those days and tonight, where and even tomorrow, where if you make the effort to do something on a regular basis, again, it's like planting a seed. It's back in that new moon category. There's a much better, potential for it sticking, and so that you don't fall off 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the thing that you're doing. So you can expand that. We'll take the Pisces out of Saturn and we'll just look at it from a Saturnian perspective. And you say, okay, I'm going to do this every day, whatever the this is. And it's a time where it can stick. It's like sticking the landing in gymnastics. Throw a little Pisces in there and think of it as whatever you do as your daily practice to, you know, I wouldn't say lessen the voices in your head, but I'll use that. So you can have some clarity, you can have some inspiration. And I've talked about meditation before and how I don't think meditation is just crossing your legs and crossing your eyes. You can do many things and it can be meditative. So today, this is a really good time. And if you think about the idea of what you're doing as bringing you closer to, let's say, your higher self, which is the conduit between you and God, then great. That's conscious. You're making a conscious effort. And I think the universe always rewards conscious efforts. The great Kenny Stabler, who used to play quarterback, Mary Lee will perk up when I say Kenny Stabler. Kenny Stabler was a notorious party animal, and he gave up drinking alcohol and became a Christian. And uh, he would go down. I think he lived in whatchamacallit, Gulfport. It's one of the he's Alabama, but it's near the water. And he would go down to the water every day and have a cup of coffee in the morning. And he called one of his buddies, a former player, and he said, "Hey, I think I've got this God thing down." And the guy said, "Really, what is it?" He says, "God just wants us to be conscious and aware." And I thought, that is a great encapsulation, to be conscious and aware. And today's one of those days where you can set that conscious awareness into like a form, and it can really pay off for you. So whatever you do, be mindful over the next 24 hours. The thing that you start is the thing that will grow. Now, fast forward into November, because that's the other side of Taurus. 6 months from now, when we deal with the new moon in Taurus, I'm sorry, new moon in Scorpio, and then the full moon in Taurus, you'll be able to see the results of your efforts. And that's going to be a crazy time anyway. Let's talk about Mars. We are still in the first decan of Mars in Aries. And it is, hold on a second. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I have an eye appointment today. Going to get my prescription updated. Hold on. Okay. So we got Mars at 5 and that sextile with Pluto at 2. Again, what's that going to do? It's going to give you energy, but not just any energy, long-lasting energy. Today, I think today's a great day. It's a great day for setting things into motion and vitality. Do something today that uh, raises your vitality, whether it's working out, whether it's walking. For some people, it's getting a massage. Do something to raise your vitality. Get your blood moving today. Today's a good day for that, especially if you're setting something in motion over the next 24 hours that you want to keep with you and then check back in 6 months from now. So there's a lot of great motivational energy that's floating around the inner atmosphere. Um, we talked about Chiron Mercury. I talked about this on Sunday night. I have a really good Chiron and Mercury story. And it happened right on the heels of the Sunday night show. And I got to get to the start of the day soon. But I was on Twitter like right after the show, and there was this young woman. You've seen these videos, like a Gen Z young woman who was doing a TikTok, and she was lamenting over the state of her life. And a lot of these young kids get a bad rap. And I am, you know, I'm supportive of them because what they're facing economically is brutal. You're coming out of school, and you're dealing with, obscene student debt, and you get a 40-hour week job, and theoretically it might pay reasonably well, but after taxes and all the other stuff and everything that you have to put in for the commute and buying your food if you're single and living alone, by the end of the day, you got nothing left. And she said, I have nothing left. And so I have no ability to enjoy my life on the weekend because I don't have any money and I'm depressed and I lay in my bed and I put my covers over my head. And look, I get it. Now, you can say, well, go get a bicycle and go ride a bike or, get a second gig. And I think what happens to us is that we have these values that we superimpose onto other people, and especially now, and it's not one to one. I'll give you an example. So this one guy came in and chimed in and said, well, you have to know what you're getting into before you go to college. My nephew just graduated with a degree in architecture, and now he's got a job at a good firm. Okay, so let's examine that statement. First of all, it's a he, that's fine. But not everybody is wired for architecture. It's a very select personality type. I understand what he's saying, and I agree with him. If you're going to go to school and you're going to take on the debt, that you need a job where you can start making significant money right out of the gate. Architecture, medical, law, high level computer science skills. Right? That's the smart way of going about it, but not everybody's wired for architecture. And the other thing is that's assuming she got some frivolous degree. And if you looked at her, she did not look frivolous. She actually took care of herself. She was dressed nicely. She and I said, "Well, you're assuming that she had a frivolous degree." Well, she doesn't have a frivolous degree. More than likely, she probably got a business degree. And she's out there with a bunch of other people with businesses marketing degrees, and companies are just like, well, you're a dime a dozen. We don't have to pay you a whole lot. There's somebody else waiting to get this job. And the other thing too is that, she's not like doing nudes on, OnlyFans or fans only, whatever the fuck they call it. I just thought this is not a reasonable take for this girl. And I said, really, the discussion we should be having. And I said, maybe your nephew could hook up with her so that she doesn't have to work and she can stay at home and start having children and raise a family. See, that's really the rub. Should she even be at work? And I'm not saying that women can't work. I'm not that much of a misogynist, okay? If you want to work, fine. If you have a passion, follow it. But once we moved out of this idea where one parent could work and one parent could stay at home and take care of things, it changed the molecular structure of the family in the United States. And in my estimation, not for the better. So once I said that, he was like, yeah, you're right. And, he was, he's, the light went ding, 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 ding off in his brain. Another guy came in and said, oh, well, back in the hippie days, we did X, Y, and Z, and we were able to do these things and get by. And I'm like, okay, well, let's tackle this one. And he talked about how for 4 months he didn't have a starter for his car, so he couldn't afford it. Couldn't afford a starter, and so he'd park his car on a hill. And of course, it was a standard shift, and he'd pop it into gear. And I'm like, that's a guy thing. Guys will do that shit. Women, especially her, that's really unsafe. It's just really unsafe. She could fuck up. And I'm not saying that women can't do that, but she could fuck up, crash the car. Maybe she lives in a part of town that is borderline sketch. She's farting around with the car, and somebody sees her do this every day, and it's like, oh yeah, she's fresh pickings right here, right? It was just a weird sort of example to bring to the table. And then I said, look, man, it's not one to one. I lived in a warehouse without a shower, a real warehouse for 3 years. Most women won't do that. They won't do that. Women need their things. They need their space, right? They need their makeup mirror. They need their closet. I didn't even have a fucking closet. I had a coat rack and I had cubby holes. And literally, I lived in an office in a warehouse. So we have this a whole, and he, you know what he did? He came around. He came around and we had a reasonable discussion, and the light went off in his brain and the light went off in the other guy's brain. And that's what I'm talking about with Mercury and Chiron. Now, last night, it didn't work as well with somebody who wanted to defend the city of Oakland, which I don't really get, but that's a whole different story. Now, I'm just curious if anybody else has been experiencing this phenomenon about communication that I clearly have been experiencing, where if you have a POV and you take into account multiple POVs and then you articulate your position in a way that is more open than closed, then you can cover a lot of ground during this time and really work on your communication skills. So don't sleep on that. I think it's a really uh, phenomenal aspect that is happening right now. Jupiter is at 29 Taurus. So we're about to kick into Jupiter and Gemini. Is it? Yeah. So we're about to kick it. Anaretic degree. And I'm wondering how people are feeling about their resources. Like what's left on the table, how much meat is on the bone. Jupiter and Gemini are going to be a hell of a ride. Hell of a ride. And for all you subscribers, I'm going to send out the webinar from Saturday in the next day. All right. It's that time. It's that True Hemp Science time. And of course, True Hemp Science is your one-stop shop for all things CBD. My man Chris is a wizard, organically sourced hemp, creates some of the most magical CBD elixirs you'll find. There's no shit in his elixirs, and you've got nano emulsified and water-based and oil-based, all kinds of options. You also have some topical solutions at True Hemp Science. Go there, truehempscience.com, type in 15MINS. You will get a free goodie bag, which is like a bonus with your order. $150, get you free shipping. And there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. truehempscience.com. All right. Here's our True Hemp Science star of the day. It is Traci Lords. My Lord. If you don't know who Traci Lords is, she was a porn star at the height of her porn game. She was the highest paid porn actress. So we're talking what? She was around 17 years old. So it'd be 10 would be 70, about 84, 85, right around there. And she was underage. She started doing porn around 15. And the way that she got into the business is she was born in Steubenville, Ohio. And for all you people who are trivia junkies, Steubenville, Ohio is the birthplace of Dean Martin. And, broken marriage, of course, and moves to Redondo Beach with her sisters and her mother. Her mother shacks up with this guy who eventually would go into Traci's room when she was young and diddle her. She goes to Redondo High. Her boyfriend crosses the line and has non-consensual sex with her, also known as rape. So Traci has a pretty shitty life. She meets someone who says that they can give her a fake ID. And not only a fake ID, but a fake birth certificate. By the way, Traci Lords is not her real name. Her real name is Norma Kuzma, but she always liked the name Traci, and she was a big fan of Hawaii Five-0 and Jack Lord. So she took the porn name Traci Lords. But there was another identity involved. So she has her name and then the name of the person that she had the fake IDs from. And of course, Traci Lords. So she had 3 identities. And she has all these planets in the 8th house. It's all hidden shit, right? It's all hidden. The identity is hidden. Even Venus ingressing into the 8th, we'll read it in the 8th, is also hidden. Mars, which is sex, right? Mars is a sex planet, 8th house, hidden. And then Mercury and Gemini, which represents kind of that multiplicity of who she is. And it's the highest planet in her chart. So she goes on to make a bunch of porn. She's in Penthouse, but she has these credentials that allow her to work in the business. Like she won a fucking AVN award, which is their little porn world awards for best actress one year, and she's 16 years old, right? And the only people that really know this are the people that set her up with the fake IDs. And then she meets this guy who becomes like her manager. She winds up having a relationship with one of her porn actors. He becomes her boyfriend. And she becomes a really big deal until one of her family members somehow sees her. I think it was in a spread for a magazine. And it's like, that's Norma. That's not Traci. So, and she's underage. So they alerted the authorities and it became this huge deal because there were all these videos of her made, and like she was a big time moneymaker in the porn game in the 80s. So all these, little dirty little stores had to pull her videos from the shelf very quickly because they didn't want to be caught trafficking minor for a porn or porn for a minor. And, remember I talked about Isaiah Thomas and the mystic rectangle and how people with a mystic rectangle land on her feet. Traci Lords landed on her feet. Now, people around her wound up getting arrested and wound up, some of them were in prison because of, but they asked Bob Guccione, well, she had the ID. Well, how did I know? And it's true. She had a birth certificate. Eventually, the woman who had the birth, the other woman found out that Traci Lords was using her identity. Like, shit's crazy, right? Absolutely crazy. So a lot of her magical powers are in the 8th house, which is Scorpio's house. And it's erotic, right? It's all about sex. The 8th house is about sex. And what's really interesting is how she just flipped. And I think you get this Mercury in Gemini as part of the flip. And she did something that very few actors or actresses in the porn world do. She became a legitimate actress and starred in a number of movies that were not porn related. And it was John Waters who saw the potential of casting her in his movie Crybaby with Johnny Depp. And that's where she makes her mainstream cinematic debut. She did one porn movie over the age of 18 from From Paris with Love, Traci. Didn't even do it in the United States. But she lands on her feet and she becomes a legit actress. She had a drug problem, of course. Neptune square Jupiter. You have all these oppositions with Neptune and Mars. So one of the things that came out in the trial of these various people is that the state of California argued on behalf of Traci Lords that she was a minor and she was drugged and she was doing these things against her will, so that they were making an even stronger case against the people that were producing her porn, meaning that they were taking advantage of her youth and her conscious will by feeding her drugs. And I think it was Harry Reams who was in one of her movies. He said Traci was never high when we were doing the movies, and she was getting paid and she was into it, right? But she does talk about how drugs were incredibly important to her, and I mean, and you can see the affliction, like with Jupiter square Neptune, more, right? More. And even the oppositional status, right, with the sun, and she almost needs the cover, the cloud of drugs in a lot of ways to obscure who she is. It's a really interesting chart. Married 3 times. Uh, and she has all this hidden material in her 12th house. Pluto and Uranus, and she wanted to escape, right? She wanted to escape her world. You know, she wanted to escape her tawdry little world where she'd been molested by her stepfather. Common story. And then at the age of 39, I thought about this, like, well, you know, how do you become a mom after doing a bunch of porn? And I know it happens, but how do you become a mom? Because then at some point you have to, you know, talk about what you did before you had a baby. Mommy, what was it like for you growing up? Well, Jimmy, I sucked a lot of dick. I sucked a lot of dick, and I was known as the queen of anal. And I made a lot of money, and then I became a real actress. And then I had you. Much later on. The other thing that she did, she got into singing. She doesn't have a great voice. You would think that with Taurus, she'd have a great voice. It's okay. But she became almost like this, she became kind of big in the techno world. And there was a track from Mortal Kombat that was created by Juno Reactor. And she sings on it. Well, she kind of moans on it. I think there's some talking, not real singing. But there are some other tracks where she sings. So Traci Lords winds up being a very interesting person. She's a survivor. I mean, that's how I would typify her chart, is that she's a survivor and she's able to kind of get out of these jams with this mystic rectangle. And Jupiter plays a big role. You know, it's in Leo. It's at the 29th degree, 26th degree. So acting is going to play a bit of a role with Jupiter and Leo. But what's really odd is that I think she has, aside from the fact that she was a teen porn actress, she had, you know, kind of conservative values. She married 3 times. Eventually she has a kid. And, you know, she's a, you know, upright, upstanding citizen and mom. So there you go. Traci Lords. The thing that to me, and I should probably talk about this before I move on, and it relates to the father and the stepfather. And it's the in conjunct with Pluto to Saturn in the 12th house to the 7th house. Remember, Saturn's the father and or the stepfather, right? So she doesn't reunite with her father for many years after. But Pluto, of course, ruler of the 12th house, has a role to play here. And older men play a role in her life. So it's not just, and the stepfather kind of is like her handler, kind of gets her into that world. And the next guy who sort of takes her on is older. It becomes her agent, and they start a company together, right? So it's these older men she has a connection with that kind of further her career. In fact, most of the men that she did porn with were much older than she was, obviously. So there you go. Your Trium Science Star of the Day, the great Traci Lords. All right, I got to get out of here. I got another show to get to, running a little long today. So thank you for being here. Link for 15 minutes in the show notes. I promise I will not be as verbose tomorrow, and we'll have an economical version of the weather. All right, have a blessed day. Take good care, and set your intentions. Plant your seed, and get into a good rhythm. Bye for now.